Well, hey y'all, and welcome back. And I've got another package in today from the Show Z store. If you've been following along, I have been collecting these Earnestcore Craft Robot Build figures, and I have a new one in, their RB-13V Valhallan. Now, from the pictures, it looks like it might be similar to their RB-13 Poseidon. However, once we get this out of the package and compare them, we'll know for sure how many parts are shared between the two. Let's go ahead and take a look at the packaging. They've maintained a similar theme using clear plastic as the primary shell. This one has some interesting red accents, as well as some nice typography showing the design printed on the box. We see a little bit exposed of the main robot, but not as much as the pieces. But what I really do like is this illustration on the box. But as usual, their packaging is fairly elegant. Now, something I do find interesting is this little bit of text here that says version. And there's 3 colors here, which makes me wonder if there might be other variants of this to come out. And even though this is nice packaging, let's go and get this guy out of the package so we can see if he's worthy of our collection. And here's the core figure straight out of the package. And I have to say this, the aesthetic, the color scheme, all the details in the parts, this guy already stands out as something very wicked and very interesting in this line. Now, the thing that really makes this line so special is the fact that all these parts can actually be disassembled and reconfigured with other bots or within itself to create new types of machines. Before we get it too far into it, the thing I actually want to start on is the other RB-13 figure to really see if they're different enough to justify another purchase. Now, they do share the same model number, and I can see that there are some shared parts. However, at first glance, this guy looks very different. But as we can see, we're looking through here for the different parts. From the front, it's actually quite hard to tell that they are at all similar. From the side, however, we can see a little bit more of the parts. Now, we do see new feet. I'm actually a slightly bigger fan of these feet because they're a little bit more stable. But this is a cool design with sort of a higher heel and some interesting protrusions here. But it looks like the base, calf, and lower leg are actually the same. So you can see the same details in there. We do have this additional piece here, which there may be a new peg system there that holds it on. We'll have to see how that's attached. It actually looks like these might be slightly different calf versions that have this extra piece coming down. So they're not completely identical in that sense. The other thing that's interesting about these feet is that it makes this guy a bit taller. Move these arms out of the way. Oh, like I said, the parts come off very easily and can be reconfigured. On that note, why don't we just go ahead and take the arm off and we can get a better look at the torso. So we'll do the same for this guy. With the arms out of the way, we can actually see that the torsos are very similar. We're sharing all this sections in here, even these arm portions here, they're just directed a different way. What is different, though, is the center section of the chest, as well as this plate here, which has more detail. We can also see completely different heads. I want to say that the back of the head is similar, as well as the jaw, but the top portion is really what's different. We go to the back. We can see what's same about the back. There's a little bit more similarities in that respect. And then what I want to look at is the arms. So we have the same type of joint being used here that connects the arms. 2 different types of shoulder pads. You can see the inside detail is the same, but this piece that's attached here versus this piece is different. The back is the same, just different coloring. This gray in here actually looks a little bit better than the way this is handled, but this is still cool. And we go to the outside, and the shoulder unit there is the same. Then we look at the bicep. Bicep is the same. Forearms are similar, but this has a different piece here, and then this one has different hands. Though they both have hand options, this one has quite a few. And we look inside, this is similar as well. So we can see there are pieces within these that are shared. However, they're not identical, and I think even the base figure is different enough to warrant additional purchase. Now let's go ahead and check out the base figure's articulation. Mind you, articulation on this figure can change depending on how you configure it, and you can modify the articulation by adding more joints and parts. But as far as the base figure goes, we will start from the bottom. We have ankle ball joint. We have a toe bend. We have a knee joint, double knee joint actually. Rotation at the knee. We have this contraption up here, which is part of the transformation. It's on a joint. There's a swivel on the base of it, as well as a joint inside, and then two more joints here. Then we have ball joint at the hip. Move it there. Move all this stuff out of the way. We can get rotation at the waist, which is a bit tricky. You can go a little bit, but we have to move these bits out of the way. Speaking of these bits, they can move up and down, they can rotate, and they have another part that can come out. Then as far as the head goes, we have a head on a ball joint, so it can look around all directions. We have two joints here. One, we have a hinge for the shoulder pads, as well as rotation on them for the joint, the way they're connected. Then there's a little bit of rotation at that base joint, and then on the end of that joint, we have a ball joint for the shoulder. You can see it can pop out for transformation, and it also has a hinge for moving outward, and we have rotation at the bicep. We have another hinge there, and then we have hands on a ball joint. So I think this guy has got plenty of articulation, and we're going to be able to add a bit more, though the armor may restrict it a little bit. As far as accessories go, first we have a tool here which you have to assemble. I keep these frames now because they have the same port size, and I think this might be useful in making builds in the future. We have a set of hands configured for holding gun-type weapons. We have a range. I didn't take these out because there's so many loose ones. We have all these little extra pegs and grabbing pieces so that you can kind of come up with custom configurations. Then we have these additional pieces here, these sort of extension pieces. And this is, I think, a new one. This one has two ports and then goes to a single. So we have these kind of small pieces, and we have one of these that's included with all of them so far. We have instructions on using the tools and pulling the things apart, as well as a set of instructions that have a list of all the parts and all the different configurations. We have a set of wings with some nice decals on the side, some metallic details underneath. We have this piece here that can be used as a tail or a gun or anything you can imagine. We have some landing gear, some nice little details in there. A third piece of landing gear with a red piece on it. Two translucent smoke wings. Two of these behemoth pieces. So let's look at one of them in detail. Got a handle on the back, ports on it, blade. And like all the other stuff, you can actually take it apart in different ways and reconfigure it and add to your custom creations. We have two of these swords, another awesome addition. Also has some ports on it. We have a closed fist. Some nice details like the forehand armor. We have a version holding a staff. Actually have multiples of those, so a total of 4. And then a second fist. So even with the additional accessories built into the core figure, we have a whole slew of option parts here for doing some really interesting creations. Now here is the look of combined mode. It really does add a lot of mass and visual lines to this character. It makes it much more energetic and dynamic. It definitely has become an evolution of the line and feels far more improved. An interesting gimmick of this is that you can make new weapons and the weapons transform. You have shields, swords, double-edged swords, guns, and probably plenty other configurations. Now here's some visual comparisons between other figures in the line. If you check the description below, you can find reviews for all these other figures. Even though he shares a lot of the parts with the figure on the right, he does show so much more mass over the other version of RB-13. And here are a couple more. These other two are on the shorter side, but really do still pack a lot of punch as far as accessories and parts go. Visually, I think the whole line is unified across the board. There's a lot of cohesiveness in the design elements that this designer uses, and I love the fact that you can take all these apart and combine them. Speaking of which, let's do a handful of part swaps just to see how it looks. I may do a series where I do a lot more combinations, but just here is a couple examples of just swapping out some arms and legs. You can really change up the design and create a whole new set of robots. It kind of justifies buying multiples of each one to create all kinds of different combinations. I also want to show off these optional other modes. The torso and the legs split to create two different designs. The lower half converts into the Raptor. As you can see, it sort of has claws and legs and a tail and even a head. And the torso half combines to create the Wyvern. Now there are some leftover parts. However, it still produces a pretty cool jet and dinosaur mode. Overall, I feel like this design is definitely improved on the line. I really love how they've added to it all this new energy that they brought to this line and kept it going. And I definitely want to add more to my collection. As always, thanks to Show Z Store for sending this out to me. Make sure you let us know in the comments below if this is worthy of your collection. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you all next time.